Thank you so much. This questions is for Tom Culkin, Treatment Not Jails Coalition. I am familiar with the coalition and its goal to change how we address those that are suffering with substance use disorder. A concern has been put out that the bail reform laws have allowed people to fall through the cracks and lose that touch point to getting them to substance use disorder. Could you speak about that and how this might be a better idea?
Yes, could you repeat the question, please?
How can we ensure that we are still reaching these individuals without rolling back progress of bail reform?
Well, I mean, I think reaching the individual is based on making treatment more available and more easier to navigate. I know myself, for years, I had the hardest time navigating a treatment system. I got kicked out of more rehabs than I cared to count. Just applying for treatment is a huge process that a lot of people just are not capable of completing, especially when you're not in your right mind. The system needs to be streamlined, and we need to make it easier for people to get into treatment in order to get better, rather than just continuing to, incarcerate them, let them out, incarcerate them, let them out. I believe that were treatment courts to be expanded, we would have a lot less crime in a matter of, a relatively short period of time. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Recently, at one of the press conferences, I believe there was a former sheriff, a law enforcement official, who has come out in support of this legislation. Could you speak about how law enforcement has now turned to say that this is the method that we should be utilizing?
Yes, I believe that was at our advocacy day just a couple weeks ago. I believe he was an Albany County sheriff as well. He spoke last year. I think that as law enforcement learns about what will actually occur if this law is passed, I think we're getting a lot more support. And recently, I've been a member of the coalition for almost 3 years now. There wasn't much law enforcement support when I first joined, but there definitely is more now. I think a lot of law enforcement officials understand that the carceral system we have now does not heal people. It doesn't encourage people to stay out of the system. Prison's a finishing school for criminals, okay? I could have contacts for drugs, guns, cars, people, if that was the way I decided to spend my time in prison. That's not how I spent my time. But that's the way most people do spend their time when they're incarcerated. Positive things just aren't done. Prison's not
MAP
rehabilitative.
programs aren't happening in all prisons and jails as they should be, so.
What was that?
I said MAT programs are not happening in prisons and jails as they should be, for what I've been told. So we could assume that, yes, this
They
is.
do have programs, but they're not run very well. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, what it comes, can I finish or no? In prison, the priority is always security. With mental illness and addiction, the priority has to be recovery, or it doesn't work. I know that from painful personal experience.
Thank you.
Assemblywoman Simon.
So thank you all for your testimony. Get this a little closer here, sorry. I'm, I think everybody, I think you have a lot of support for increased TII, which is the new word for COLA. And I think everybody understands that need and the fact that we're sort of digging ourselves out of a hole that we've been digging for a long time. And this is a big step, but it's not going to solve every problem. I also want to kind of just explore with you, because I think this big issue this year is involuntary commitment, expanded AOT, money to help counties pay for things, even though we believe it, let's say, shouldn't be coercive. But there's a real challenge here with people feeling that they need to do something to address this issue, which appears to be, and what people are thinking is criminality, right? And yes, we could say we're criminalizing mental illness, but that's been done, and everybody has this association, and it's being ginned up by the press for sure, but we've also had some really horrible things happen. And how do we separate those things or achieve a balance that people feel like we have made some progress on this without going to the other extreme, which I think people don't realize that the balance is actually against people with mental illness. when people may think it's for them and it's an excuse, right?
Those episodes were horrible. Those episodes were horrible.
Yes.
But they represent such a small minority. And there are other murders like that that happen, but if it's a person with mental illness, it's on the front page of the New York Post.
Right.
And we're being told to force them. So I just want to make a distinction there. The services I mentioned are for people who are that troubled, who we worry about, who are struggling and suffering. We don't stand by because we're for human rights. We provide the service that actually works. You're just going to force people into the same bad services if you don't create the right services. That's what we need your help for. Don't go to coercion. It really is not going to get it done. I know the public is afraid, but stand tall with us, please.
If I can just add, we have a whole list in our testimony of positive, voluntary, community-based programs that are the answer. So we're not just saying, don't do this, we're saying, do that, which has an excellent track record. And one of the things that I want to quickly squeeze out is something that Senator Brooks spoke about, and that is the panels of
The incident review
we're going
panels.
to talk about the incident review panels. And so many people have spoken about the need to look at what are we doing wrong in order to figure out what we're doing right. That is the answer. It's already in statute.
And you can put in the law, it says may, put shall. Have OMH do that.
Can answer. Whose turn is it?
It's your turn.
Harvey, would you continue to answer the question for me, please? Now I have 3 minutes. Answer the question.
What, I
Go
couldn't-
answer the
Finish your
question. she
question,
said.
finish your answer.
Finish the answer.
Oh, more time?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Senator. So, first of all, I want to say that people, even the county officials have said to me, I only put them on an order because the waiting list for services is so long, and if you put them on AOT, then they'll get front. So you're dragging people in front of a judge and criminalizing them only to get them to the front of the line. So we got to pay attention to that as well. The incident review panel is really critical. It was recommended in 2008 by a panel in New York City. You put it in statute in 2014. OMH, the commissioner's great. She doesn't want to do it. We have a right to know what happens each time. Otherwise, these tragedies happen and, you don't hear what happened. And they don't have to break up some kind of confidentiality. We've reviewed these things, and what we find is the services are not coordinated. That's a big one. So the incident review panel will probably get us services that are better coordinated, more effective, more engaging, and like that. I forget the fourth word, but
Thank you.
thank you,
Assembly.
Senator. Thank you so much.
Assembly Member Giglio.
Okay, so I agree, OPWDD needs to take back the rates. The 7-1 rates, we just got them when, 2 weeks ago? Yep, and organizations such as yourselves are owed millions and millions and millions of dollars that you've been operating on a tight budget since 7-1 because these rates just came out. But hopefully you'll be getting those checks within the next couple of weeks, and it will be retroactive. So yes, I agree with you. OPWDD needs to take that back. DOH has a lot on their plate right now with early intervention and with the CDPAP program, and OPWDD should be taking care of your agencies. So I 100% support that. I also support the rate increase, and I also hope that my colleagues and I can get together and make it that you will get your increases every year based on the rate of CPI. We're seeing a lot of inflationary increase in the budget this year for state agencies, but we are not seeing it for our not-for-profits. And a lot of our state agencies are closing down, and those people are coming to you. So I'm just, I love the idea of a wage commission. I love the access to capital resources for energy. I think these are all really important things because not only are you dealing with not getting the funding that was promised to you in the budget because the rates weren't set, but you're also dealing with high utility costs and other inflationary items that could reduce your expenses so that more of this money could go to the DSPs. So if you could just tell me any other ideas that any of you have so that we can all work together on this to make sure that we fully fund our most vulnerable population.
If we started with those, we'd make a huge dent in trying to address some of the challenges that have been pervasive in this system for an awfully long time. The things you just rattled off would make a gigantic improvement in our service delivery system.
Just thank you very much for your support, and we'll continue to work with you this legislative session. It has to be about this.
We done? Senator Fitzpatrick?
We have more time or no?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the clock there, no problem. Oh,
Thank
it's
you. I
not
just
working.
wanted to follow up on a question that Senator Fernandez asked to Mr. Colkin.
Going back and forth. I don't know.
With cashless bail, criminals are, arrested, we release them. How do we motivate them to voluntarily enroll in a program to help them with either their addiction issues or their mental health issues? How do we reach those people and motivate them to get the help that they need?
I think that that's a great question. I think that one of the ways is to make recovery more attractive, and the increased use of peer specialists, I think, is a great way to do that. The word has to get out that you can live a good life without drugs, without alcohol. You can still be okay taking mental health medications on a daily basis. How we do that, I don't know. I'm not a public relations person, but I think that would really help the situation quite a bit, and also streamlining the system, like I spoke about earlier. I mean, people with master's degrees have a hard time navigating the treatment system today.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Barbara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. It's a big panel, so thank you for all your testimonies. A lot to take in, but it's all good information. I also want to echo what I said for the last panel. The Wage Commission, I think, is a very good idea, and I saw it on some of your websites and social media, along with some other things as well. The wages are one piece of it, I find, with my agencies, and particularly Liberty ARC in Amsterdam. They have really embraced a credentialing program. They've had several graduating classes. So the recruitment and retention is a whole other piece of it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, besides the wages, I think we need also to do more career pathways. And I suggested investing more in the SUNY system and those type of career pathways. Maybe just comments and maybe some things we can do in the budget to improve these pathways to professionalize and credentialize.
Sustaining the things that have been piloted by OPWDD that have proven good outcomes would be remarkably valuable, whether that's professional development in our direct support professionals themselves, the credentials, the SUNY CUNY micro-credential, building a pipeline through the BOCES programs and other things like that, will pay gigantic dividends if we are able to reflect the complexity of these jobs in the wages that are paid for them. Quite frankly, this sector of OPWDD service providers would be in a more competitive position with regard to other positions in any other sector, including, quite frankly, human services as well, because of some of these types of investments, if we get to wages that are indeed more competitive, because it becomes more attractive. It's not just that I have to leave the job to go to get something different. I can make this part of a career, especially if I'm passionate about that, and I want to remain as part of someone's life, and supporting them to become supporting them to pursue their dreams and achieve their dreams the best as possible. These are remarkably great things. We just need to kind of follow that through with making sure that the compensation reflects the complexity of the job.
Agree with everything Michael just said, and I'd like to also add that the Wage Commission is so important because in order to get us from where we're at now to where we actually need to be, in order to really professionalize the position and pay people what, commensurate with what we request them to do 24/7, it's a multi-year plan because it's going to be quite expensive to raise salaries in the ways that we need to.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. Mr. Culkin, I had some questions. Mr. Culkin, I had some follow-up questions for you. Senator Conazzari Fitzpatrick asked you a question that related to, with violent individuals, you said yourself that you were convicted of a violent crime. What crime was that?
I pled guilty to 3 counts of attempted burglary in the 2nd degree. It's considered a violent crime by statute because of the potential for violence. I entered people's homes while they were there.
Right, and I think, so let me just preface this by saying that one of the things that I really think that we should try to shoot for as a society is to get people who are having trouble with substance use disorder into therapy and treatment as soon as possible. But the distinction that I think some of the DAs have said to me when it relates to this piece of legislation is that it lets violent criminals out on the street where they need to get rehabilitation inside as well, and that rehabilitation come in the form of behavioral rehabilitation as well as substance use disorder. So what would you say to the DAs?
I would say that's great in theory. I could talk for an hour about how ineffective programs in the prison system are. No policy is going to perfectly address every case.
Sure.
We are going to make mistakes. The idea, I think, is to benefit more than we take away. And I think that treatment, it's not going to work the first time for everybody. It's that simple. But
Can I just ask you a question? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when were you incarcerated? What
I was
year?
incarcerated from 2013 to 2020.
Okay. So in our county, our sheriff is very active, probably, you know, and I know several are, but I just know from personal experience that our sheriff has really been at the forefront of bringing as much treatment for substance use disorder into our jail system, and he actually goes around the country speaking to other systems about how to incorporate that. So was there something like that in prison for you that you could benefit from?
I was sent to prison in 2013 with a drug problem. I was put in an alcohol and substance abuse treatment program in 2019. The program was run by inmates while the counselor stayed in the office. I was lucky that there was inmates who actually cared and would try to be effective. But yeah, we had professional counselors. They weren't doing anything. There's no motivation for them to do anything.
So if I may, just 2 quick questions. So I had asked before, and I only have 18 seconds, so I'm going to run out of time. But I think with bail reform, we miss an opportunity to get people to treatment as quickly as possible. And I think with desk appearance tickets, there's an opportunity there to switch the system and make it available for people to get treatment rather than having to go into the court system. And if they fail, then they go into the court system. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I do want to mention quick with regard to the OPWDD and taking back the rate setting. As we know, the governor is administratively transferring billions of dollars out of DOH into the mental hygiene budget. So it makes even more sense that for consistency's sake, that be the case. And I would say even transparency's sake. I wanted to ask Winnie in particular if you have any thoughts with regard to this. I know, we had done that call back in December, and we were talking about the Wage Commission, and I think it's something we need to do and set ourselves up for, the future, so we can finally make the changes we need to make and get and make sure there's adequate wages to retain and recruit workers. But I think we all know in the legislature, if we do something like this as a standalone bill, it's getting vetoed, right? It happens on so many important issues. Some of them have come up today. But that's just the nature of where we are. So it's imperative that it get done in the budget. So do you have any sense as to what an appropriate appropriation to go along with that would be so that it could be conducted?
Well, that would be the job of the Wage Commission. First, they would have to study a variety of direct care positions, because it's not just DSPs, although obviously...
Actually, I mean for the conducting of the study, actually.
I don't know the cost of that. Do you, Michael?
No, I do not, but I would venture to guess that that's probably not north of $1 million. Like you're talking a pretty sizable group of sectors that you're going to need to look at, bring in. I'm thinking travel, quite frankly, is going to be one of the most expensive things to cover in that, but you could look at this and get some really good trajectory for where the system needs to go. Multiple systems need to go. It seems like wise investment of resources.
I'm just trying to avoid the pitfalls that we see all the
Yeah.
times with these
No,
things.
it would be a group of people who are already engaged in the work, so they, there are no salaries involved. Travel looks like the thing. Yeah.
Right, you look like you have something you want to say.
Yeah, I just, the topic of money came up. I just want to say that it costs a lot less to treat people than it does to incarcerate people. The state's paying $150,000 per person a year. Rikers, it's over $500,000. I mean, it's just, the money makes sense.
Absolutely. I agree completely. Right. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for your patience in being here and your advocacy.
Hi, thank you so much for your work and for your words. In my district, I've seen firsthand how bureaucratic systems inhibit or prevent folks from getting the treatment and care that they need. And I know it from my own community as well. So I know you can't force or cajole somebody into successful recovery. So what are some other barriers that you all are seeing to good recovery that we aren't addressing right now? And what are the right legislative fixes and budgetary fixes that you need from us that we could propose in our one-house budgets?
Well, I think housing, a lot of, people, I think poverty, I think racism, isolation. So I think there are programs like the Clubhouse programs that are going upstate. They provide all of that. They provide food, drop-in services, sort of relapse prevention. We have programs out there. We already know what works.
Right.
We just have to invest in them.
Right.
We should get a COLA, but we also just need more and more different services. That's much cheaper than $1,300 a day in a hospital in New York City.
Right. And I know workforce is really difficult too. I know so many folks who are in recovery who are looking for work, but they don't have recovery-ready workplaces available for them to work at.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on that program and what we could be putting into that?
I don't know that one, but clubhouses, that's the main function of a clubhouse, besides connecting people sort of socially, is employment. I ran the clubhouse in Albany, and because I didn't do employment all day long, I wasn't really a clubhouse. That's how serious it is.
That's great.
I was just going to add, along with housing and dealing with poverty, let alone racial issues, I think that you're very much onto something, and it's something that we're looking for too, and that's employment skills training, absolutely. And in the program that you mentioned, vocational rehabilitation programs, that's where definitely one of the areas. But I think if you take a look at the list that we have and you want to know what can we do, the programs that we have on that list are tried and true, and that's where the money should go, and that will avoid the consequences that you're concerned of, even though we say those are very limited, violent public safety consequences.
Right.
I just want to add that recovery is holistic. If we get somebody sober but don't help them find a place to live and give them a way to meaningfully pass their time, it's just not going to last. I mean, what is it they say? Idle hands are the devil's work. If I didn't have a reason for living, what's the point? I think the money for the clubhouses is huge.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to all of you for being here. I appreciate your well-thought-out strategies to address treatment for mental health issues. And I was just curious, of course, treatment courts seem like a really good way to address a variety of issues. And I wondered, are there statistics that show where there is a adequate amount of treatment courts and where there is none? Do you have those statistics across the state of where this is succeeding? Can we get those numbers anyway? to
There
see
are
that?
numbers. I'm not really familiar with a ton of them, but I can say that I don't know what year it was, but the most recent year statistics were available. There was something like 20,000 arrests in the state, and 40 people were diverted to mental health court. I mean, that's a statistic for the underuse. There are statistics. I could connect you with the person who would have them. I'm not familiar with all of them.
Okay.
I can say that making the decision to divert somebody to treatment based on the recommendation of a clinician would be a lot more beneficial than the recommendation of a DA.
Yeah, it seems like it could be make a big impact. And then I really like to learn about the programs like the Peer Bridge, Inset, Clubhouses. And the same question goes, like, where are those succeeding and where are they? And where are there like deserts where there's nothing like that available to people? Do we have that? Like, do we know if Long Island's underserved, upstate? What do we know about
Really
this?
everywhere. The Inset program starts in Westchester, now they have one in Long Island. Now they have two in Suffolk. They have one in Buffalo. So there's 5 of them in the state. Bridger programs, we created that out of 5 state hospitals. And now there are more of them, but that's the core. And we help people get out and stay out of hospital. In the budget, we're happy that the governor's going to fund some Bridger programs in community hospitals, not just the state hospitals. So they're growing slowly. These are first generation of these new models. So we have 5 of this kind and 8 of that kind. But so there is some money in the budget, but we'd love more because we really think we need
And
them.
it seems like it would be, a wise investment because it really does make an impact. But I would love if we could get any statistics so we could see where we need
will.
more, where do we need more of them.
Definitely.
And I agree with the review board, the review panels. It's odd to me that it was adopted in 2014 and still hasn't been implemented. That seems odd. And also wage commission study, all of those ideas, are, to me, I'm on board with all of them. And Harvey, you mentioned you were at Mercy Hospital. Do you live in Nassau County?
I grew up in Freeport.
Oh, in Freeport. And do you still live over that way?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, you could make an appointment at my office and we could speak about
No,
this more if you were local. Okay, thank you very
We'll
much.
have lunch at Ben's.
Thank you so much for all of the work and advocacy from everybody here. I just want to do a special thanks to Ruth and Harvey. Thank you for supporting my district, working closely with my mental health task force that we've created. And we got to shout out Christina for making sure we put all that together as a peer. Not only my constituency, but my family members as well. You have supported them greatly. So I do agree that we need a sustainable person-centered plan with peers at the front of the conversation, like treatment, not jail, not like Daniel's Law, the $1 million that we fought hard to make sure that that report was done. Shout out to Bronson and Brook on that. I just want to know, when it comes to, we talked about the increased funding for Peer Bridges program, definitely expanded local culturally responsive respite centers and clubhouses, transform the mental health crisis response like that, housing, invest in expand family support. That's something I really want to talk about. Oftentimes, families are left out of the process or not in the plan at all, and barriers are created for families to really support. And we know that's the way to recovery, is with family support. So I used to think about, like, if you had a brochure, a one-pager, what happens once you enter CPEP, right, for a family, when you leave them at that door, right? What then go to the MHUs, aftercare? What would you think would be like the first thing that we need to focus on for family support so they can be really intentional about the recovery of individuals in crisis?
So we work closely, Harvey and I. Actually, we work in the coalition with criminal reform attorneys and civil rights advocates, providers, disability advocates. And one of the major contributors to that coalition is NAMI New York City. And as you know, they are all about family programs. And we have a whole platform that is in my testimony and that I can share more broadly with more details. But NAMI New York City will be putting in testimony that specifically talks about what kind of money for what kind of specific programs, unless you have something more specific to say,
The
Harvey.
family support program is $500,000, is what they told us for this year.
Well, that's what we're getting, but I think we have other recommendations. Yes.
We're asking for it.
No, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Good, we're a team.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else that you want to add to that? You're good? All right, thank you so much. No, she good. She have something? Go ahead.
Well, I wouldn't mind just saying one more thing. In terms of all of the programs that we're talking about, I want to just take 1 second to talk about the Daniels Law, because that is something that takes into account all the issues we have been talking about here, the prominent role of peers and take. Oh, I thought that the assembly member.
She still had time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you still
Sorry
had
if I
time.
did the wrong thing.
You used up your time already. You can talk to
8
her
more seconds.
afterwards.
She hadn't. The clock was running. And there's still, in fact, 8 seconds.
It's your, remember, you decide.
Go, talk.
Keep going.
Go.
I'm sorry, not to offend, but the Daniels Law, which we're hoping to get everyone here to sign on to, many of you have, is all about the frontline role of peers and to avoid the crises that could potentially lead to untoward events, again, which we say are limited in number.
Okay. All right, everyone now got their time. Well, then we're going to ask you, thank you very much for staying with us and for sharing so much important information.